What if I told you that one of the most powerful shifts in a man's confidence, presence, and intimate performance doesn't start in the bedroom at all, but in a quiet, almost unnoticed ritual he does alone at night? A ritual so simple yet so deeply connected to how his body responds, how his mind relaxes, and how his energy flows when it truly matters. And most men either ignore it or rush through it, without realizing that this small moment could be the missing link between frustration and control, between doubt and quiet certainty, between connection that feels forced and connection that feels completely natural and undeniable. The truth is, intimacy is never just physical. It is a conversation between your body, your thoughts, your emotions, and the way you treat yourself when no one is watching. And the nighttime oil routine, when done with awareness rather than habit, becomes more than just a physical act. It becomes a signal to your nervous system that you are slowing down, that you are tuning in, that you are preparing not just your body, but your entire presence for a deeper level of connection. And this is where most men misunderstand the idea of performance, because they chase intensity without building sensitivity. They chase outcomes without understanding preparation, and they focus on moments without respecting the process that creates those moments. When you begin a nighttime oil routine with intention, something subtle begins to shift, because your body responds not only to touch, but to the quality of attention behind that touch. And this is where awareness becomes everything, because when your mind is distracted, rushed, or disconnected, your body mirrors that state. But when your mind is calm, focused, and present, your body follows. And over time, this builds a kind of quiet control that cannot be faked or forced in the heat of intimacy. The skin itself is incredibly responsive, filled with nerve endings that communicate directly with your brain. And when you apply oil slowly, deliberately, and consistently, you are not just nourishing the surface, you are increasing circulation, enhancing sensitivity, and training your body to respond with more awareness rather than impulsiveness. And this is the difference between reacting and feeling, between rushing and understanding, between tension and control. Many men carry hidden tension in their bodies without even realizing it, especially in areas connected to performance. And this tension often comes from stress, pressure, expectations, or even past experiences that were never fully processed. And when you ignore that tension, it doesn't disappear. It simply shows up later in moments where you want to feel confident, but instead feel uncertain. And this is why the nighttime routine matters, because it becomes a space where you release that tension gradually, where you create a sense of familiarity and comfort with your own body, and where you replace anxiety with awareness. The oil itself plays a role not just physically but psychologically, because the act of warming it in your hands, feeling its texture, and applying it with care sends a message to your brain that this moment matters, that you are not rushing, that you are giving yourself time. And that shift alone begins to rewire how you approach intimacy as a whole, because you start to understand that connection is not something you switch on instantly. It is something you build slowly, layer by layer, moment by moment. Over time, this routine begins to influence how you carry yourself even outside of intimate situations. Because when your body feels more responsive and less tense, your confidence becomes quieter but stronger, less performative and more grounded. And people can sense that difference even if they cannot explain it. Because true confidence is not loud, it is steady, it is calm, it is present, and it comes from knowing your body rather than fighting against it. There is also a deeper emotional layer to this practice that many overlook, because intimacy is not just about physical readiness. It is about emotional openness. And when you spend time connecting with your body in a non-judgmental way, you begin to remove the pressure that often builds around performance. And instead of approaching intimacy with a mindset of proving something, you begin to approach it with a mindset of experiencing something. And that shift changes everything because it allows you to be more present, more responsive, and more connected to your partner rather than trapped in your own thoughts. Consistencies is where the real transformation happens, because doing this once or twice will not create a noticeable change. But when it becomes part of your nightly rhythm, your body begins to adapt, your sensitivity improves, your awareness deepens, and your confidence grows naturally without force. And this is what most men are missing, because they look for quick solutions instead of sustainable practices. They want immediate results instead of lasting change. And they overlook the simple habits that quietly build the foundation for everything else. The environment you create during this routine also matters more than you might think, because your surroundings influence your state of mind. And when you choose to slow down, reduce distractions, and focus fully on the moment, you are training your brain to associate calmness with your body rather than pressure. And this association carries over into your intimate experiences, making it easier to stay relaxed, present, and in control even in emotionally charged moments. Another important aspect is the way this routine helps you understand your own responses. Because when you pay attention to how your body reacts to different levels of touch, pressure, and pace, you gain insight that cannot be learned through theory or advice. And this self-awareness becomes incredibly valuable because it allows you to respond more intuitively rather than relying on guesswork. And this is what creates a deeper sense of confidence, because you are no longer uncertain about how your body will react. You understand it, you trust it, and that trust changes the entire experience. As this practice becomes part of your life, you may notice that your patience increases, your reactions slow down, and your ability to stay present improves. And these qualities are not just beneficial for intimacy, they influence every part of your life, because they help you handle stress more effectively, communicate more clearly, and connect more deeply with others. And this is why something as simple as a nighttime oil routine can have such a profound impact, because it is not just about the act itself, it is about the mindset, the awareness, and the consistency behind it. The transformation is subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, but over time it becomes undeniable because you begin to feel different in your own body, more connected, more in control, more at ease. And that internal shift naturally reflects in your external experiences, creating a cycle where confidence builds on awareness, awareness builds on practice, and practice builds on consistency. And this is how real change happens, not through sudden breakthroughs, but through small intentional actions repeated over time with focus and care. As this quiet ritual deepens, something even more important begins to unfold beneath the surface. Something that most men never consciously recognize, but always feel the absence of. And that is the shift from performing to truly experiencing. Because when your body is no longer tense, when your mind is no longer racing, and when your awareness is no longer scattered, you begin to realize that real connection is not about trying harder, it is about allowing more. And this is where the nighttime oil routine starts to reveal its deeper power, not as a technique, but as a form of training your entire system to slow down, to feel more, and to respond with intention rather than urgency. Many men unknowingly carry a sense of urgency into intimacy, a subtle pressure to achieve, to prove, to reach a certain outcome. And this urgency often disconnects them from the very experience they are trying to enhance. Because the more you chase a result, the less present you become, and the less present you are, the more your body falls back into patterns of tension and inconsistency. But when you train yourself nightly to move slowly, to breathe deeply, and to stay connected to sensation without rushing toward a goal, You begin to dissolve that urgency at its root, replacing it with a steady, grounded awareness that allows everything to unfold more naturally. This is not about control in the rigid sense. It is about control through relaxation, through understanding, through being so familiar with your own body that nothing feels unpredictable or overwhelming. And that kind of control cannot be forced in the moment. It has to be built over time in moments like these, when there is no pressure, no expectation, just you and your awareness, learning how to stay present even in subtle sensations. There is also a powerful neurological aspect to this practice, because your brain is constantly forming associations based on repeated experiences. And when your nightly routine becomes a space of calm focus and positive sensation, your brain begins to link those states with your body, making it easier to access them later. And this is why consistency matters so much, because every time you repeat this process with intention, you are reinforcing a pathway that connects relaxation with responsiveness, awareness with confidence, and presence with performance. And over time, these connections become stronger, more automatic, and more reliable. Another layer that often goes unnoticed is how this routine reshapes your relationship with time itself. Because instead of seeing time as something you are running out of, you begin to experience it as something you can expand through awareness. And this shift has a direct impact on how you experience intimacy. Because when you are not mentally rushing ahead, when you are not fixated on what comes next, you are able to stay fully engaged in what is happening now, and that presence naturally extends the depth and quality of the experience without any forced effort. The physical benefits also begin to compound in ways that are both subtle and significant, as improved circulation, increased sensitivity, and reduced tension all work together to create a body that is more responsive and less reactive. And this distinction is crucial, because a reactive body is driven by impulse and inconsistency, while a responsive body is guided by awareness and control. And the difference between the two is often what separates frustration from confidence, unpredictability from reliability. As you continue this practice, you may start to notice that your breathing becomes slower and more controlled. And this is not a coincidence, because breath and sensation are deeply connected. And when you consciously or unconsciously regulate your breathing during this routine, you are teaching your body to stay calm, even as sensation increases. And this is one of the most important skills you can develop, because it allows you to remain present without becoming overwhelmed, to stay connected without losing control, and to experience intensity without rushing through it. There is also an emotional clarity that begins to emerge from this consistency. Because when you spend time each night in a state of focused awareness, you naturally become more attuned to your thoughts and feelings, and this awareness allows you to recognize and release patterns of doubt, insecurity, or pressure that may have been affecting your confidence without you even realizing it. And as these patterns begin to fade, they create space for a more grounded and authentic sense of self to take their place. This authenticity is what truly transforms your presence, because it removes the need to perform or impress, replacing it with a quiet confidence that comes from being fully comfortable in your own body. And this comfort is something that cannot be faked. It is felt, it is sensed, and it naturally draws others in because it creates an environment where connection feels safe, natural, and unforced. The routine also teaches patience in a way that goes beyond simple discipline, because it shows you that real results come from consistency and attention rather than intensity and force. And this lesson extends far beyond intimacy, influencing how you approach challenges, how you build habits, and how you develop confidence in every area of your life. Because once you understand that small, consistent actions create lasting change, You begin to trust the process rather than constantly seeking immediate results. Over time, this trust becomes one of your greatest strengths because it allows you to remain calm even when things do not go perfectly, to stay present even when distractions arise, and to maintain confidence even in moments of uncertainty. And these qualities are what truly define performance at its highest level, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. As this deeper level of awareness becomes more natural, you may find that your entire approach to intimacy begins to shift in ways that feel almost effortless. Because instead of trying to control every aspect of the experience, you begin to flow with it, responding to each moment as it unfolds. And this responsiveness creates a sense of connection that is far more powerful than any technique or strategy, because it is rooted in presence, in awareness, and in genuine engagement with both yourself and your partner. And as this shift continues to develop, it opens the door to an entirely new level of experience, one where confidence is no longer something you try to create, but something that naturally exists as a result of your consistencies, your awareness, and your connection to your own body. And this is where the true transformation begins to take shape, not as a sudden change, but as a gradual evolution that becomes stronger with every night you commit to the process. And as this evolution reaches a deeper level, you begin to notice something that cannot be measured in simple terms, something that goes beyond technique, beyond routine, and even beyond physical response. And that is the quiet alignment between your mind, your body, and your emotional state. Because when these three elements start working together, instead of against each other, everything changes in a way that feels both natural and powerful at the same time. And this is where the nighttime oil routine reveals its full impact, not as a trick or shortcut, but as a foundation that reshapes how you experience yourself and how you connect with another person on every level. What once felt like effort now begins to feel like flow. What once felt uncertain now feels familiar. And what once required conscious control now happens with a sense of ease that comes from repetition and awareness. And this is the difference between forcing confidence and embodying it. Because when something is embodied, it does not need to be activated. It is simply there, steady and reliable, no matter the situation. This is also where many men begin to notice that their focus shifts away from themselves and toward the shared experience. Because when you are no longer preoccupied with your own performance, your attention naturally expands to include your partner, their responses, their energy, their presence. And this shift is what transforms intimacy from something internal and pressured into something mutual and connected. And it is this connection that creates depth. Because true intimacy is never one-sided. It is a continuous exchange of awareness, sensation, and emotion. The routine you have built each night becomes a kind of silent preparation for this exchange. Because it has trained you to listen without rushing, to feel without reacting impulsively, and to stay present without being pulled into distraction or pressure. And these qualities allow you to respond in a way that feels intuitive rather than calculated, natural rather than forced. And this is what creates an experience that feels genuine rather than mechanical. There is also a deeper sense of trust that begins to form, not just in your body, but in yourself as a whole. Because when you commit to a practice consistently and begin to see its effects over time, you develop confidence, not just in the outcome, but in your ability to create that outcome through your own actions. And this self-trust is incredibly powerful because it removes the fear of unpredictability, replacing it with a calm certainty that you can rely on yourself regardless of the situation. As this trust grows, it influences the way you carry yourself in subtle but noticeable ways. Your posture becomes more relaxed yet grounded. Your movements become more deliberate. Your presence becomes more centered, and these changes are often felt by others, even if they cannot explain why. Because confidence at this level is not something that needs to be displayed. It is something that is naturally expressed through the way you exist in a moment. The emotional impact of this transformation is just as significant as the physical one, because when you no longer approach intimacy with tension or doubt, you create space for a deeper level of connection that is based on comfort, openness, and mutual understanding. And this kind of connection is far more fulfilling because it is not driven by pressure or expectation. It is driven by presence and shared experience. Over time, this presence becomes your default state, rather than something you have to consciously create. And this is where the true power of consistency reveals itself. Because what you practice repeatedly becomes part of who you are, and when calm awareness becomes part of who you are, it naturally influences every interaction, every experience, and every moment of connection in your life. You may also begin to notice that your perception of intimacy itself starts to change, because instead of seeing it as a performance or a goal, you begin to see it as a process, something that unfolds gradually, something that deepens over time, and something that is shaped by the quality of attention you bring to it, rather than the speed or intensity with which you approach it. And this shift in perspective removes a significant amount of pressure, allowing you to engage more freely and more authentically. The nighttime oil routine, in this sense, becomes more than just preparation. It becomes a reminder, a daily reinforcement of the idea that connection starts with awareness, that confidence is built through consistency, and that true performance is not about doing more, but about being more present, more attuned, and more connected to both yourself and the person you are sharing the experience with. And when you reach this point, where your body responds with ease, your mind remains calm, and your awareness stays grounded, you begin to understand something that cannot be taught through words alone, that the most powerful transformations often come from the simplest practices, repeated with intention and care over time, and that what you do in quiet moments when no one is watching has a direct impact on how you show up in the moments that matter most. This is the full circle of the journey, where the small, consistent habit you started at night becomes a defining part of your confidence, your presence, and your ability to connect on a deeper level. And it reminds you that real change is never instant, but when it is built with patience and awareness, it becomes lasting, reliable, and truly transformative, shaping not just your performance, but your entire experience of intimacy in a way that feels natural, grounded, and deeply fulfilling.